So I was told that I may never ever walk again. I was told this a day before my 21st birthday. And I've done a brief video overlooking it with how Wim Hof and cold water and breath work has helped me, but a lot of people have asked for a bit more of an in-depth video, so grab a coffee, grab some water, sit back, relax, because this will be the video that I explain everything in a little bit more detail. I'll start off with a bit of background about who I was, where I was coming from, and how I developed my autoimmune condition. I'll explain a little bit about my experience with the hospital system, how it succeeded and failed me at the same time, my coping strategies, and how I dealt with not only the physical pain, but the mental pain as well. And as life goes, you're also doing other things as you're experiencing these health conditions. So I achieved what was my dream job at the time during all these health struggles. So a little bit of background from that, but I'll do a deep dive into my burnout, my stress, and everything related to my dream corporate job in London, but I'll briefly touch upon it in this video. But I'll also go over what helps me, where I am now, and what I'm continuing to do. So if you're experiencing autoimmune condition, rheumatoid arthritis, maybe life struggles, burnout or pain, this is a great video to watch, to understand, to maybe have something to compare yourself against, to know that you're not alone. Because for my whole journey, I did feel quite alone until I realized that I wasn't. Way too hot, apologies. So this started back in 2017. I was studying my psychology degree in Australia, and during the winter, I decided enough was enough, and I signed up to be a coach at a summer camp in America. It was the first time traveling by myself, doing something as massive as going overseas, not knowing where I was really living, staying, who I was with. And I look back and reflect upon it as such a pivotal point in my life, for all the right reasons, but also for all the wrong reasons as well. Growing up in Australia, we're so lucky to have access to amazing air quality, amazing fresh water, amazing quality of food, veggies, meats, dairies, things along those lines. So going to America, it was quite confronting to see everything that had high fructose corn syrup in it. Everything was a lot sweeter, everything was a whole lot processed. The bread had sugar in it. And for me, I was like, nothing was really aligning. But I was there for, I want to say, 3.5 months, eating powdered eggs, Captain Crunch, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and all these really heavily processed things. I was really addicted to Gatorade. I would get like a $1 gallon or whatever it was, and it was just the best thing ever. But I think for a lot of people, they expect this slow decline where they start getting sicker and sicker and sicker. But for me, that wasn't the case. It literally happened overnight. After I finished being a coach, I went and traveled America at about 30 days until I had to leave to go back to Australia. So I traveled with friends I met from camp and then started traveling by myself. It's weird talking about this. I don't really normally talk about this. So I was in Boston at a hostel, and I was there for 4 days. And on the second day, I remember going to sleep, then waking up in the middle of night, freezing cold, like to the bone cold. And I went and stood in the hostel bathrooms, having a shower, trying to warm myself up. And it was as hot as it could go. It was just, I don't know if it was scalding me, but it was just unreasonably hot. And I could just feel myself, I just couldn't get warm. So I proceeded to go back to sleep. And I remember in the night having this pain in my left leg, my left knee, and kind of flicking it out and maybe hyperextending my knee. But it was this really weird, uncomfortable feeling that I vividly remember it being this twinge And I slept and slept and slept and slept and slept and slept. And I think I slept for 14 to 16 hours. And a few people who I'd befriended in the hostel were really quite concerned for me because they were like, yeah, we got back. We left at 8 in the morning. We got back at 11. You were still asleep. We went out for lunch. We came back at 1 o'clock. You were still asleep. We came back at 2:30. You were still asleep. They're like, we just didn't know if you were still alive or not. And that was the pivotal point. My leg started being unable to bend. So at the moment, I could bend at kind of 90 degrees. And then day by day, it started just going straighter and straighter and straighter to the point where all my strength could not bring my knee down. At this time, I was in Philadelphia, going to what was a music festival. But I missed the first day because I was in the ER trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. If anyone has experienced the American medical system, it is the most mind-numbing, infuriating experience ever. I went to the doctors with, I think I had a cough, I had something else, had a few different bits and pieces. And I get there and I start rattling off everything that I have. Being like, I woke up in sweats, I slept for 16 hours, my leg struggles to bend, and the doctor stopped me mid-sentence and went, you can only do one. What one do you want to focus on? And I was just like, what the fuck? Are these not related? Are these not, have any effect on each other? But at the time I was 20 and had no voice. I didn't know what was good for me or what was wrong. I just went along with it. I went, these are the professionals, they know what they're doing. And 5 days in Philadelphia turned into 11. I went to the emergency room 3 different times. I had multiple different scans. I had my blood tests. I had ultrasounds. I went to 2 knee specialists where they drained fluid from my knee to be able to test and see how inflammatory it was. They pulled over 1 liter of inflammatory liquid from my knee. And at this time I was going back and forth with my insurance company. My mum, bless her soul, was speaking to them over in Australia as well. But nothing was getting done. No progress. And there wasn't anything for the insurance company to warrant getting me back to Australia. So I remember walking into the Penn State emergency room. At this point, I was shipped around the whole of Philadelphia, sent here, sent there, told to come back the next day. I was sore, I was tired, I was scared, I was worried. My visa was getting closer and closer to expiring. And I walked into the emergency room and I just broke down in tears. And I was just like, I can't move. I just need some proof that my leg and everything is just not working. I went through the process, spoke to some amazing doctors at the time. They handed me this piece of paper that said that I had torn 2 out of my 4 connecting tendons from my knee to my thigh. And at that point, the insurance company turned around and went, okay, let's bring you home. I flew home, got off the plane, went straight to the emergency room, got further scans done. Weeks went past where I had set up for an emergency appointment with this knee specialist for surgery, since I needed to get it operated on. At the meeting before the surgery, he turns to me and goes, I've looked at your scans, and I've looked at your blood work, and there's no signs of any tears. The issue that you're facing won't be resolved with surgery. I remember my heart sinking and just not understanding the severity of what that means. I got referred to another specialist, which set me out for a few more weeks. And at this time, the pain in my left knee slowly started to dissipate. slowly started to feel a little bit better. I was on handfuls of pills for steroids and pain and everything in between. But then slowly my right knee started to get worse and worse. And the brace that I had on my left knee, I moved to my right knee. I went, that's concerning. And from walking on crutches with my left knee in a brace to then walking with crutches, my right knee in a brace, I quickly realized that this wasn't what I expected. I went the day before my 21st birthday and saw my rheumatologist, and I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. This is an autoimmune disease which attacks your good bugs in your body, and it was causing lots of inflammation, particularly around my knees, my ankles, and my hips. And at that point, the doctor said that there's a chance that I might not ever walk properly again. I was in crutches and wheelchairs. The pain of pressing in the clutch of my manual car felt like walking on broken bones. And as you can expect, as any 21-year-old would, I handled the news terribly. I would drink to numb myself, play video games to distract myself, supplement my pain medication for other forms of numbing. My whole identity was completely lost. I played sports 6 days a week. I surfed. And during that period of time, I would wake up at 10:30 a.m., eat foods, play video games until about 2 o'clock, go back to bed for another 3 hours, wake up 5 o'clock, do the same thing until 8 or 9, and then go back to sleep and sleep for 14 hours. During this period of time, I was finishing off my degree. My university scores absolutely tanked, and I passed by the skin of my teeth. My brain fog was immense. My pain was through the roof. I had bursitis in my ankles. And I remember getting home one day and just falling into my mum's arms and just saying, I don't know how long I can do this for. It really felt like there was no hope in sight, and I was just so angry at the world for the gods or whoever it was punishing me in a way that I didn't understand how. I was scared and frightened, and when I went to seek help from the government through Centrelink for support, because at that time my parents were paying for my medical bills, my treatments, my food, my accommodation, and I wanted to feel like an adult, and they heard my story, which I will play now from the version of me who was going through it. So this will be 21-year-old Michael you'll be hearing next.
I waited to see a rheumatologist for weeks. At this point, I couldn't walk, had to get dressed by my parents, and babied basically. The pain was getting worse and worse each day, to the point I had to go to the local GP. At this stage, it had gone into my other knee. Struggling to walk, I had to be put into a wheelchair. I was prescribed steroids, which helped, and then I was diagnosed the day before I turned 21 with RA, rheumatoid arthritis. Throughout this whole time, I'd lost over 8 kilos due to lack of appetite, and thought that I possibly would have contracted a parasite while I was overseas. I was in constant thirst, had hot flushes, waking up in a pool of sweat. It's gotten better recently, but being hungry and my food intake is definitely not what it used to be. So the same day I met Hedley Griffiths, which was the rheumatologist at Barwon. I had the more inflammatory liquid removed from both my knees, and then cortisone put into both. I was prescribed methotrexate to take, and I tried to get back to work when I felt that I could walk better on them. I did it for my mental health than anything else. But the pain and the fatigue meant I could only work about 3 hours maximum a shift. Normally only working around 2 on average. With the pain in my knees, it caused me to limp. And as it was always changing, one day it might be my right, the next will be my left knee. It made having a limp gave me back pains, which got worse until I had to go to the physio. Then as soon as that started to occur, I started getting pains in my heels as well, which got worse and worse, to the point that I couldn't walk. I had to get a disabled parking sticker, which was humiliating. Then had to get an ultrasound on both my ankles, which they found out had bursitis, and then received 2 cortisone injections into my heels as well. I struggled getting dressed, going to the bathroom many times, had to call my mum in to either dress me, help me put on, my pants or something, or even take me to the bathroom. I crawled many times to the bathroom, which was painful enough, but for me to even go to the bathroom was made worse due to I couldn't actually stretch my legs out. I even passed out once in the shower due to the pain, and that was when I went to the local GP. And on top of all this, I was trying to drive, and I had my manual car, which trying to operate it would give me a flood of tears due to not being able to press down on the clutch firm enough to change the gears. And this pain, as well as all the other things that were going on, resulted in me getting prescribed tramadol for the pain, which was interesting. In February I ended up going back to the specialist, since my medication wasn't doing anything, also showing him the effects of my medication, which actually affected my back really badly, left me with putty bleeding ulcers, leaving my bedding and clothes covered. I got referred to a specialist for my skin, and got placed on Roaccutane, I think it's called, which drug is linked to depression and anxiety. So add that on to the list, and then I finished uni mid-February, which gave me a chance to work a little bit more, because after finishing work I would need the next day to recover, or I need some time to recharge my battery, so to say. I finished uni, gave me more chance to work, but I was only still managing about 4 hours a shift until my legs began to ache and seize up. I was on normal painkillers like Panadol and anti-inflammatory medication, and the hardest part that I've had to manage from the start and throughout was my fatigue. I can sleep for 10, 12 or 14 hours at any given night, and struggle to wake up in the morning. I still feel tired as well. I regularly take naps in the afternoons, or if I can't fit in the time, I would have to kind of sit down and use that time to relax and not really work my brain and not really work myself as well, just so I don't overdo myself for the whole day. Waking up at 11 a.m. and needing to sleep by 3 p.m. gets hard sometimes, so it feels like I hit a wall and I can't really think straight anymore. Become like a zombie and I struggle to string sentences together. I just feel like I haven't slept, and it's worsened when I have stiff legs and aches when I'm trying to get to sleep. It's kind of a combination of both, and that's possibly due to the lack of muscles in my legs, which I've lost, mostly in my left leg, because it was in a cast for such a long time, and they thought that I would need surgery to operate on my tendons. But in all honesty, I really wouldn't be here without my parents. My medication costs upwards of $30 a week. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but having to have that for the rest of my life does. Both my RA and my skin specialist cost over hundreds of dollars a session, not to mention weekly physio appointments, and then that's just the medical side. Feeding me, housing me, taking me places. They used to drive me a lot now. I did sell my manual car, so I'm on my automatic car. They also take care of me physically, as I said. They would help me, get dressed in the morning, or help me fill out paperwork when my mind was foggy. I don't want to really think about where I'd be without them. I love them to death, but I'm 21, nearly 22, and I feel like a child, and it's not what I want to be, what I like. I had to quit football, which I've been playing for my whole life. Even surfing, struggling to walk when the sand was the worst part. And I think the thing that affects me the most is waking up every morning and not knowing if I'll be able to walk or if my legs will be sore today. Some days, especially early in my rheumatoid arthritis, I'd wake up one days and be able to walk relatively fine. Other days I'd be crawling out of bed. So it's really the unpredictability. It's hard being such an active person, and now with the my condition, I have to hold on to the hand railings or ease myself into the chair like an old man, or even look for elevators, which I wouldn't do. It's definitely the unpredictability which is the main concern. And I've called work up many times to tell them I couldn't work and that I was sick, but they know why I couldn't work, and they're really good with it. But it's a bit hard knowing that I've let people down, and I think that's the hardest thing. So, yeah.
I watched that video for the first time maybe a month ago. I've blocked out so many things. Memories, experiences, it's all just a bit of a blur. It's all just in the background. I slowly started getting a little bit better. I was having handfuls of medications every day, medications for pain, medications for inflammation, medications to stop the good bugs in my body from destroying the rest of my body. During my recovery process, I got an offer that I couldn't refuse. I got offered my dream job, what I thought was my dream job. I was working with brands like Uber and Emirates, and was going to London Fashion Week and all these amazing experiences. Not only was I dealing with my own physical health and my mental health, but the stress of the job, of working, of the commute, of living in London, on top of my medication, on top of my terrible coping strategies, just got worse and worse. And then 2020 happened, the big C word. I came back to Australia to work remotely, which is another story in its entirety. And during that time, I started dating. The long and the short of it was, it got to a position where I had to make a decision to either go back to London and go back to the stress, the worry, the panic that September and November 2020 was, to sacrifice my life, my health, my mental health, being with my partner. I had a puppy, I was renovating a van for this job. And I turned around and I said it wasn't worth it. So I handed in my resignation. The same week that I finished that job, my partner at the time broke up with me. All these plans, all these adventures, all these future tasks and abilities just went out the window. And I found myself at rock bottom again. I was living at home with no job, with terrible health and terrible coping mechanisms. And I remember thinking to myself, I can either, one, go down the same routes, use the same terrible coping mechanisms, and not take care of myself. Go back to drinking, go back to playing video games, or I could try things that are completely new to me. And that's when my life completely transformed. I decided to do everything that I thought was cringy or uncomfortable or out of my reality of normality. I knew there was a gap in my knowledge that needed to be filled before I could continue moving the direction that I wanted to go down. I speak about building my foundations, and that stuck in my head. I didn't know where I was going, I didn't know what I was doing, but all I knew was if I could focus on my foundations, which is your sleep, your movement, your nutrition, your relationships with not only the people around you but yourself, and for a lot of people it's their phone use or technology. And that's what I did. I started eating better, sleeping better, incorporating more movement, understanding what dopamine was, understanding how to get a good sleep, what was important to me and what wasn't. And surprise, surprise, who knew that these foundational pillars that so many people speak about, the focus away from instant gratification, away from societal's expectations, the focus on oneself was the catalyst that moved me from being this pissed off, sad, victim mentality individual to a person who was content. And it only got reinforced when I decided to move over to New Zealand. I'd always planned to do a ski season, but I didn't realize how impactful being in a space with like-minded individuals who want the best for you, who share like-minded goals and objectives, and that's where I found my now fiance. And through this whole process, I had a better understanding of my body, my health, my wealth, what was important to me and what wasn't. I started feeling less like a victim and more like somebody who was winning in their life. Yes, maybe I didn't have a fancy job or I was pulling in thousands of dollars a week, but I was wealthy in so many other areas. And incorporating what I learned in my psychology degree and deep diving in breath work and cold water and using myself as a guinea pig to understand how important sleep is, understand how important habits, formations, mindset. I took the plunge and decided to start my own business, which is Higher Wellness. And we were so lucky to be supported by an amazing community back in New Zealand, holding breathwork sessions, meditation, cold water, mindset work, working with individuals, private clients, corporate clients. We were working with companies in Australia, we're holding retreats, working with some amazing brands, amazing companies, and slowly speaking to people and understanding and hearing their journey and me expressing my journey and the intrigue and the questions. I slowly started working individually with clients, moving away from just breath work, just meditation, just cold water therapy, to focusing on their mindset, their habits, their sleep, their phone use, and their life. I don't want to call myself a life coach. I think that is a cheesy way of looking at what I do. I support people, I hold them accountable, and I push them in a way that maybe they wouldn't push themselves. I give them perspective and I facilitate their ability for change. Because at the end of the day, the change comes from you. I had to be the one that decided to stop the terrible coping strategies. I had to be the one that said, I need to focus on my sleep. And I'm grateful for everything that it's provided me. It's now my full-time job. I help people move through the challenges of life. And if you're interested or needing any help or assistance, feel free to reach out to me, click the first link in the description. But I'm just so grateful for the journey that I've been on. I'm grateful for the challenges I've faced. I'm grateful for all the uncomfortabilities. As painful as everything has been, I don't regret my decisions. I don't regret having my arthritis. All that pain, all that struggle has brought me to this place. I am now probably the happiest, probably the healthiest, in a very loving relationship, helping other people in their life. And I couldn't think of anything more that I would like to do with my life. And if you're needing help in anything, be it an autoimmune disease, life, your phone use, burnout, stress, feel free to reach out to me. We can have a discussion and see if I can help. Because at the end of the day, the decision for you is if you want the change, you have to be one that actions it. I've also got a bit more of a deep dive into how cold water and Wim Hof helped me through the process, because cold water, the mentality around that, as well as the breath work side of things, was such an amazing catalyst for me to sit back within myself and to understand myself clearer. So there'll be a little video here about that if you'd like to have a bit of more of an understanding. But I hope you have an amazing day, and I want you to know whatever challenges you are facing, with time, patience, you will be able to overcome them. And don't let the feeling of being a victim take over any form of your own understanding of who you are yourself. Thank you for your time.